Hello everyone, Nabil Qureshi with Creed 26 Ministries. Today we're going to take a look at the 5 pillars of Islam. Now, Islam stresses that Muslims have duties to perform to God, and these duties are so important that 5 of them are given the title pillars of Islam, as in foundational supports to Islamic belief and practice. These 5 pillars are the Shahada, Salat, Zakat, fasting, and Hajj. Let's take a look at these one by one. The first pillar, the Shahada, is the central proclamation of Muslims. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. You might be saying, Nabil, this is a belief. Well, yes, it is a belief, but the proclamation is extremely important. And we find this proclamation being given early on in a Muslim's life, so early that in fact many babies hear it the moment they're born from their fathers or their caretakers. And many Muslims are urged to say it right before they die as a means of gaining entrance into paradise. You will find the Shahada throughout the Muslim world, on mosques, over doorways, in amazing calligraphy such as this piece that you see here. And you'll also see it on flags. For example, the flag of Saudi Arabia has the Shahada in it. Many jihadis will use the Shahada on their flag, and Hamas, for example, has the Shahada on their bandanas, their flags, etc. And so the Shahada has a very prominent position within the Muslim world, and you'll see it virtually wherever you go. Another thing that you should know about the Shahada is that proclaiming it is the requirement to become a Muslim. If you say these words and believe them, then you are a Muslim. Muhammad says in Sunan Abu Dawud, number 2526, that this is a sufficient condition for becoming a Muslim. Anyone who says these words, there is no God but Allah, in fact just the first half of Shahada, anyone who says those words is a Muslim and cannot be excommunicated for any sin he commits. Now, with such a central place in Islamic theology, you'd expect the Shahada to be found in the Quran at least somewhere, where in fact it's not. The Shahada is not found in the Quran as it is found today, but its constituent parts are found. Chapter 3, verse 18 of the Quran says repeatedly that there is no God but Allah, and also chapter 33, verse 40 of the Quran says that Muhammad is his messenger. Together, this forms the Shahada. The second pillar in Islam is the Salat, the 5 daily prayers that Muslims offer to Allah every day. Now, this isn't prayer in the Christian sense, where form doesn't quite matter as much and you get to petition God and come up with words on your own as you see fit according to the occasion. Muslims have a very ritualized manner of praying, and that includes ritualistic preparation for prayer, which is washing up and saying certain prayers, etc. I recall as a Muslim waking up in the morning and praying the Fajr prayer, and as the day progressed, the Zuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha prayers as well. That was here in the United States. In the rest of the world, the adhan, or the call to prayer, often wakes people up early in the morning, and it's also the end of the workday in many places when the adhan is given for Asr prayer. In addition to affecting the daily calendar of Muslims, Salat also affects the weekly calendar. Chapter 62, verse 9 of the Quran says that on Friday, the Sabbath day, Muslims are to hasten away from their business in order to go pray. For this reason, throughout the Muslim world, Friday is the day off, and usually not Saturday and Sunday. Now, I have mentioned that there are 5 daily prayers, but if you read the Quran carefully, only 3 are listed. But as we know, in Islam, sola scriptura is not their motto, and so development in hadith literature and in seerah literature of 5 daily prayers is the basis for the Muslim practice of praying 5 times a day. The third pillar of Islam is zakat, which is charity or alms. The Quran gives clear instruction very repeatedly that Muslims are supposed to pay and to help the poor, the needy, the widow, the orphan, even wayfarers and prisoners, and people who want to emancipate slaves. So the zakat goes to these purposes and is repeatedly propounded throughout the Quran as a necessary duty for all Muslims. The fourth pillar of Islam is fasting. Now, Muslims fast during the holy month of Ramadan, and during this time, from sunrise to sunset, they allow nothing to enter through their lips, not food, not water. Now, Ramadan is extremely important to Muslims. Even nominal Muslims will often be very rigorous in their observances of prayers and fasting during this holy month. There's a significant social component to this fasting as well. For example, at the end of every day, there's usually an iftar dinner where Muslims will open up their fast together and then go to pray. At the end of the month, there's Eid al-Fitr, which is a celebration of the month of Ramadan and is one of the 2 most holy days for Muslims throughout the course of the year. It is helpful to understand the Quran's position on fasting through verses like chapter 2, verse 185, where the Quran makes allowances for Muslims who cannot fast. For example, if they're sick or if they're traveling, it's said that they can fast outside of the month of Ramadan. So there is some flexibility and some leeway here for people who are having difficulty meeting the requirements of the Muslim holy month. The fifth pillar of Islam is known as Hajj. Now, this is the pilgrimage Muslims take to Mecca, and most Muslims aspire to do this at least once in their life, though the actual Hajj occurs once every year. Throughout the course of the Hajj, there are many traditions in which the Muslims partake, including circumambulating around the Kaaba, running back and forth between two hills called Safa and Marwa, drinking Zamzam water, pelting a Satan with stones, kissing the black stone. There's a lot of things that Muslims do during the Hajj, and there's a great deal of lore surrounding this. For example, when people go to the Kaaba, many people believe that the first time they see the Kaaba, all the prayers that they're speaking at that moment will be answered. Now, not all Muslims believe this, of course, but there's a lot of lore surrounding the Hajj. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's the 5 pillars of Islam. And it's my prayer that in hearing about the 5 pillars and learning about them, you'll be able to better relate to your Muslim friends and neighbors and understand what's important to them and what makes up their religion. By understanding more about our Muslim friends and neighbors and understanding where they are and what their religion means to them, we can more effectively build relationships and connections with them through which we could share the gospel. A Muslim will often not hear the gospel message if they don't know you and trust you. And part of gaining their trust is being able to know who they are. So I thank you very much for stopping by our website today. Please stick around so you can learn more about Islam and Christianity. God bless you all. Oh, and as Columba would say, there's just one more thing. I mentioned in the course of this video that there are 3 prayers mentioned in the Quran, whereas Muslims pray 5 times a day. Now, these 5 prayers are deeply ingrained in Muslim tradition. So, we have to ask the question, is there something early on in Islamic history, shortly after Muhammad, where the prayers might have gone from 3 to 5? Well, the answer is yes. In 633 AD, just 1 year after Muhammad had died, Persia was conquered at the hands of Abu Bakr and Khalid ibn Walid. One of the major religions in Persia is Zoroastrianism, and Zoroastrians prayed 5 times a day, in the exact times that Muslims pray now. But it is possible that Zoroastrianism had an impact on Muhammad before the conquering of Persia. For example, Muslims pray in a specific direction, just like the Zoroastrians do. They do certain ritual washing before these ritual prayers, just like Muslims do. In fact, the pagan influence on Islamic tradition extends beyond the times of the Salat. The traditions I told you about during the Hajj, for example, running back and forth between Safa and Marwa, circumambulating the Kaaba, kissing the black stone, these were all things that pagans did before the coming of the Muslims. Jews and Christians probably also had an effect on the foundations of Islam. For example, chapter 2, verse 183 says that fasting in Islam is a continuation of what people believed and practiced before Islam, probably the Jews and Christians. Now, Muslims will argue that all these traditions trace back to Abraham, but there is no evidence for that outside of the Hadith literature. In sum, well, it's up to you what you think about the origins of the 5 pillars of Islam. It's helpful to be able to share something with our Muslim friends, though, that they might not know. And so this little tidbit at the end of the video is just for you. Thanks for sticking around.